So the 81 kilo category just happened, and it was in many ways everything I could have asked for, everything I think a generation of weightlifters could have asked for. And having spent the last hour getting this script ready, to be honest, I've been almost overwhelmed by the emotion of thinking about the career that Liu Xiaojun has had, and the fact that this might have been the last time we ever actually see him compete. Now, before we get into this episode and talk about what actually happened in this competition, a quick reminder, it's 20% off competition collars for the day. So head over to the stores, you can get that. I'll put a link down below. Also, if you want to learn more about AthletesOnly, which drops right now, then stick around at the end of the video. So the snatches started off with a bit of jockeying for position from the coaches as ever, which ended up with the USA's Harrison Maurus coming out with 153 kilos, which is actually the heaviest opener we've ever seen from him internationally. And he looked really confident with it, and he destroyed the lift. It looked wonderful. Spain's Andres Mata then followed with 154 kilos, which he also made well, and then Germany's Nico Müller with 155. What followed then was your standard long string of changes, which ended up seeing the bar rise up to 158 kilos for Zacharias Bonat from the Dominican Republic. And he set up with his usual incredibly narrow stance, but beautifully straight pull and smooth upper thigh actually contact. And he hit this really nice opener to get started in the competition. Latvia's Ritva Suharovs, who we've seen compete so many times as a youth junior, now senior over the years, also tried 158 kilos for his opener, but he couldn't lock it out, which is bizarre for him because he does have such a wonderful lockout, and he lost the bar forward. Harrison Maurus then made no mistake on his second attempt. He also came out for 158 kilos, which would match his international PR, 2 kilos below his sort of national competition record of 160. He looked in the shape of his life and made the lift. Andres Mata from Spain then also came out and did the same thing. Ritva Suharovs did much better on his second attempt, although one referee was still not completely happy with his lockout, but a 2-1 decision was enough for him. Nico Müller then took 159 kilos comfortably on his second attempt, which put him up in a really nice position, set him up to take a new personal record attempt on his third lift. But before that, we saw Ali Mendez from Chile, who, to be honest, at this point was lucky to even be in Tokyo, having served his 1-month suspension for using cannabis. And that suspension ended up literally just before Tokyo, so he was able to turn up and lift. He took 160 kilos for his opener and made the lift, but honestly, it didn't look like he had a huge amount left in the tank, if anything. I mean, back as an 85, he hit 175, but that was a totally different time for Ali. Then we had Rajapov Rejape from Turkmenistan, who opened up at 160 kilos also, and he looked significantly more comfortable than Ali Mendez, and suddenly, in my eyes, looked like a bit of a dark horse who perhaps I had mistakenly overlooked as a potential medal contender in this category. Also worth mentioning at this point, Antonino Pizzolato hadn't opened up yet, and so I was beginning to get a bit nervous because I really want him to perform well, and his competition record is internationally is 164. He did 167 at a national meet recently, but we're already up at 160, and he actually put his opener in at 165, which would have been a personal record, so I was getting concerned at this point. Harrison Maurus from the USA then came back out for his third attempt. He opted for a 161 kilo all-time personal best for his final lift, 3 kilos over his international competition PR, 1 kilo over his national PR, and he put in a great snatch to give himself the best possible chance of a medal, although he would still need to rely to some degree on a couple of other lifters maybe not having their best performance, but suddenly he was in the running. Andres Mata from Spain also tried 161 kilos on his final attempt, but he couldn't get it overhead, which unbelievably was only the second miss so far of the entire session. Nico Müller followed with the same weight for a personal record and was awarded it by the referees, perhaps helped by using a red unitard against the red backdrop. The jury wanted to take a look though, and some extended discussions took place before the lift was disappointingly eventually taken away for just a minor elbow movement. A real shame because it would have been, as I said, a competition record for him. And now the first of the likely medal contenders came out. Brian Rodriguez from Colombia opened with 163 kilos and made it despite needing 2 attempts to even stand up with the weight. And then Zacharias Bonat from the Dominican Republic tried the same on his second attempt but missed it behind. Ali Mendez also missed 163 kilos as expected, to be honest, given his opener. But Ritvos Suharevs, having missed his 158 kilo opener, made it on his second attempt, smashed 163 kilos, which is just 1 kilo below his own personal record. And he looked like he had more in the tank had he not missed that opener, which was, I guess, both a relief for him and a shame. Next, we had Zacharias Bonat for his third attempt. He had, as I'm sure many of you remember, placed second at the Pan American Champs just 3 months ago behind Brian Rodriguez. He went 164, 196 versus Brian's 168, 195. And he did much better on this third attempt. He hit the 163 solidly, a kilo below what he did at the Pan Am Champs. And interestingly enough, actually, before he grabbed the bar and lifted it, his coaches had to come out and sort of tell the Dominican Republic fans who were in the audience to just quieten down. Next, the dark horse, Regé Redjapov, took the bar up to 164 kilos for his second attempt. And again, he looked comfortable. He made the lift before Antonio Pizzolato from Italy finally came out and opened with 165. As I've said over the last few months, I think that I've been thinking this for a while, is that this is Lou's category to lose, but it's Nino's category to win if he does particularly well. So this was an interesting opener. Unfortunately, he couldn't get the bar securely overhead and he lost it. He has that sort of dodgy left, I think it's a shoulder problem that hurts him when he gets to heavy lifts overhead. But the bravery that he shows to come out for such a huge opener, and then that strength to maintain such aggression for his second attempt, having missed his first, and not think, oh my word, what have I done? Why have I opened so heavy? I could bomb. Is so underrated, that strength of mindset that Nino has. Next, Chinese legend, 5-time world champion, Olympic champion, multiple-time world record holder, perhaps the most influential weightlifter of the 21st century, Liu Xiaojun, took the same weight at 165 kilos for his opener and gave us an almost identical lift. Honestly, I'm almost so used to watching Liu come out and miss his opening snatch attempt that I was bizarrely unfazed by it. Maybe that's not true. The amount that I was spinning around on this chair, standing up, sitting down, sliding back was it was crazy during this session, so I was probably a little bit more concerned about Liu than I'm letting on. But when was the last time Liu made an open on a snatch? I'm not sure. But at this point, the competition then seemed almost wide open. Antonio Pizzolato then came back out for his second attempt at 165 kilos, a 1 kilo competition PR, and this time he did make the lift. Liu then came out and did the same, and this time he also made it look pretty comfortable, although there was actually a little bit of movement in his right elbow. I maintain that it was just a internal-external rotation sort of in and out of the shoulder, but either way, that led to the jury taking a look. And this was scary because, truthfully, it was as much of a wobble as some of the other ridiculous judging press-out calls that we've seen from this competition. But fortunately for Liu Xiaojun and the Chinese team, and I think the relief of hundreds of thousands of fans out there, they determined that there was no unlocking of the elbow, and he was given the lift. Chile's Ali Mendez, still in this, somehow convinced himself to try 165 kilos as well, but he got nowhere near it. Underdog Regé Redjapov came out for his third attempt at 167 kilos for a 2 kilo lead over everyone, but eventually lost it behind. I think he likely would have been called for a press out on this regardless, but even so, it was a fantastic attempt for him. Brian Rodriguez from Colombia moved up to 168 for his second attempt, a weight that he hit at the 2020 Pan Ams 3 months ago, but he lost that lift, looking perhaps as though this weight would be just a little bit too much for him today. Then Antonio Pizzolato also came out at 168. I believe a 1 kilo personal record for him, like in any environment from the floor. And though he got quite close, much closer than Brian Rodriguez, he wasn't able to hold it overhead. So his 165 would still put him in a good position to challenge for a medal. So back then to Brian Rodriguez for his final attempt. He had one more go, but he couldn't make it, meaning that just one lift remained. And of course, if there's one remaining lift in the snatch in the 81 category, it's going to be taken by Liu Xiaojun. Although that didn't actually happen at the last Asian Championships, but still. Liu took 170 kilos, a weight he's made internationally at this point in his 13-year-long international career 19 times. He opened up a 5 kilo lead going into the clean and jerk. So that means that is his 20th 170 or more snatch in his career, which is so far beyond anything that anyone else in that weight category of the modern era, I'm talking sort of 1997 onwards, has done, is crazy. He's 37 years old. I mean, he's in a league of his own physically. And so that lead would now mean that Antonino would need to clean and jerk 6 kilos more than him in order to deny him another Olympic gold medal. Andreas Matter got the clean and jerks underway. The jerk didn't look particularly solid, but the referees gave him white lights. Yet again, though, the jury stopped the competition to take a look. They stayed consistent with the harsh standards set so far and took that lift away from him. On his second attempt, he missed again before getting it overhead on his third. The referees passed this time, and the jury actually applauded him for having been able to come back and make that lift, having missed his first two, which was nice to see. Ali Mendez, who had hit 160 kilos on his opening snatch, came out, made a tough clean at 190 kilos for his opener, but the jerk looked like the clean just took way too much out of him, and he didn't really get close to it. Not quite like the old 225 kilo 2017 Ali Mendez training hall days that we perhaps are used to. Nico Müller looked much better, hitting an easy clean and a routine-looking jerk, also at 190 kilos, although one referee did press red light. Fortunately for Nico, the jury wasn't interested in taking a look. Ritva Suharos from Latvia then made the same weight for his opener at 190 kilos, although the jerk looked tough, perhaps not helped by the bar sort of picking up a bit of tape that he had down the front of his singlet that was covering up a Nike logo. I guess that might have added a little bit of friction, who knows, or it just threw him off. But he did end up making that lift. Ali Mendez then came out for his second attempt, having missed his opener, and he couldn't clean the 190 kilos this time, and really kind of looked like he might be the first bomb out of the session. He followed himself for a third attempt, and this time he got under the bar, but the bar had too much backwards momentum. He keeled over backwards with the clean, letting the bar roll back over his head. So a truly disappointing result after all of his struggles to be even allowed to compete at the games. It's a real shame to see him perform so poorly. Underdog Rejay Rajapov then took 195 kilos as his opener, got the clean but could not make the jerk. And as one of the front runners from the snatch, he was in bronze position after the snatch actually with 154. This miss really did begin to open a door for some other lifters. Brian Rodriguez then did almost exactly the same thing, missing his attempt, and so suddenly there were so many more lifters who might be in contention for a medal. Harrison Maris now being one of them. And so the USA's Harrison was the first of those to try to step forward and fill that gap, also taking 195 kilos for his opener, his heaviest opener to date. The clean wasn't the easiest. The pull was easy and the stand was easy, but he was a little off balance, moving backwards on his foot, so the stand-up was a little slower than he would have liked. But he got it overhead with absolutely no problem, giving himself a shot at a medal at this point at 161-195 with 2 attempts remaining. Nico Müller then, on his second attempt, again fell foul to the jury, losing his 195 kilo second attempt for a press-out. I personally, watching this, felt like this was a very, very harsh call. This was the second lift that Nico had overturned for a press out, so I felt kind of gutted for the guy, honestly. Ritva Suharos did much better, hitting the same weight to set up his medal push. And then Rajapov Rajapay made a much better clean on his second attempt at 195 kilos again, but again he missed the jerk, which looked like he might become the second weightlifter behind Ali Mendez to bomb out, but he did have 1 attempt remaining. Nico Müller then gave the jury absolutely no doubt on his third and final attempt, hitting that 195 kilos to finish with a 354 total. He wouldn't challenge for a medal, but he could be proud of his performance here, if not a bit annoyed about his 2 overturned lifts. Next, after a long wait, after his own 195 kilo miss, Brian Rodriguez from Colombia came out for 195 kilos again on his second attempt, and this time he did more than enough to make the weight. It was a good lift. Liu Xiaojun, now having set himself up in a commanding position after that 5 kilo lead over Nino in the snatch, dropped his opener from 200 kilos down to 197 kilos, which, I'll be honest, eased the butterflies in my stomach. He was perhaps convinced that he could now take pretty safe lifts for the gold. The clean was easy as ever, and the squat jerk was solid. So despite the fact that he looked in a little bit of pain afterwards, which isn't particularly unusual for him, I mean, he's 37 years old, he now had a great position and sat in the gold medal slot. That put him at a 367 kilo total to open up quite a significant lead. Zacharias Bonat then opened really heavy at 198 kilos, and he hit the jerk strongly. So with 2 attempts left, he now looked like a strong medal contender also. Antonino Pizzolato had raised his opener to 200 kilos, a tremendously heavy opener, meaning that there was more lifting to go before he would even come out. I mean, it's worth remembering that he did hit 206 kilos at the European Championships 3 months ago, so he's in good shape for the clean and jerk. Rivar Suharas also got the clean at 198 kilos, but dropped his knee to the platform on the jerk, and no lift for him. His 358 kilo total would almost certainly not be enough to medal, but still a decent total for him. Rajapov Rajapay then came out for his final attempt in a do-or-die situation, and incredibly, despite going up to 198, having missed 195 twice, he made a much better clean and jerk attempt on his third and final lift. But just absolutely crazily, after he'd put the bar overhead with no press outs, he dropped the bar before the down signal. He got 2 white lights initially, but the jury took a look and they refused to lift. They turned it down. His coaches challenged and the jury called the referees over. And so we were kind of thinking, are we going to see something similar, something akin to the decision that happened for Luis Mosquera back in the 67s a few days ago, where he dropped the bar early? Unfortunately, we wouldn't. With Luis Mosquera, there was a technical problem. With this session with Regé Rajapov, he just made a rookie schoolboy error, dropping the weight from overhead too early. It was his own fault, so he ended up bombing out. Finally, Italy's Antonino Pizzolato opened with 200 kilos, and he looked brutally strong on the clean. He standed it up, and I kid you not, twice as fast as Lu Xiaojun stood up his 197 opener, and he made absolutely no mistakes on the jerk. I mean, remember, he literally jerked 225 kilos recently in training, 18 kilos over Lu's world record. So it wasn't enough to take the lead from Lu, but it did put him up into a silver medal position. Harrison Maris, still in the game from the USA, took 200 kilos on his second attempt. I want to say that's 1 kilo shy of his personal record. Confusingly though, this would only equal the bronze medal total of Bonat and therefore put him into 4th, whereas a kilo higher and he would have been in bronze. But he did make a really nice lift to sit in 4th, and he still had 1 attempt to take a strong position for Team USA. And also, the best clean and jerk I've seen from Harrison at those kind of weights, I looked at it and I thought, he's got 203, 204, maybe 205 in him. It looked really fantastic. Brian Rodalegas missed his third attempt at 200 kilos. His attempts were all done at this point, and so he was out of the running with a 358 kilo total. He would not medal. Zacharias Bonat, under considerable pressure from Harrison Maris, though with 2 lifts remaining, then came out for an Olympic record clean and jerk attempt at 202 kilos. He made the lift in style to solidify further his bronze medal position and become, briefly though it was, an Olympic record holder. It would also force Harrison to make 205 kilos to overtake him again, which was beyond Harrison's PR. Antonino Pizzolato then came onto the platform like a raging bull and got 203 kilos overhead, despite an actually surprisingly tough clean for him. But he ended up pressing the bar out, and he knew he'd press it out. It was the first really obvious, that's got to be 3 red lights type press out, so it was a no lift. He still, however, sat and remained in bronze. Lu Xiaojun then selected 204 kilos for his second attempt to just drive a nail into Pizzolato's chances of catching him. If he were to make this 204, Antonino would need an absurd 210 kilos, 3 kilos over Lu Xiaojun's world record. 204 was also, incidentally, the top clean and jerk that Lu Xiaojun hit at the 2012 Olympic Games, where he won his first Olympic medal. So that was just nice to see that kind of bookend of his career there. He came out and the clean was perfection, and the squat jerk was also good. And obviously Lu ended up claiming the Olympic record there, but also almost assured the gold medal. He had 1 attempt to go. Harrison, therefore, for his third attempt, opted to remain at 205 kilos to challenge for the bronze medal, but before he could do that, Bonat, who he was trying to overtake, responded with a remarkable 204 kilos also, which he nailed, which meant that he then moved up into the silver, overtaking Antonio Pizzolato, who is now in bronze, meaning that Harrison Maurus would need a huge 207 kilo clean and jerk to push him out of the medals. And so instead, Harrison opted to stick with 205 kilos, which would not be enough to go ahead of Bonat or Nino, but it would be good enough to just put him in a really... Wait, would it have overtaken Nino? No, of course it wouldn't have, because Nino didn't make it. Wait, would it?
He would have overtaken him at that point.
It would have beaten him. Gosh, if he'd have got that, he'd have gotten a bronze. So Maurus then had to take 205 kilos, which would not be enough to get ahead of Bonat, but would be enough to get ahead of Antonio Pizzolato and move into bronze. And considering in 2019, I think it was, he went for a 205 and ended up clerking the lift and couldn't get under it. I did a really great video with him. It's on Weightlifting House where he talks through that performance. He managed to clean this weight spectacularly and took a good attempt at the jerk, but he wasn't able to get under it. I could at the time barely watch this lift, such was my excitement at the fact that Harrison might get a bronze medal. And it was a strong performance, performance that you can be really proud of. 5 or 6, 361 kilos in the total, personal record total for him. A great performance, but not quite enough for a medal. But it did put him into the 4th place position. Antonio Pizzolato was not done yet. He could either take 205 kilos to reclaim the silver over Bonat, or go for 210 kilos, a 3 kilo world record to go for the win over Liu Xiaojun. Now, knowing Antonio Pizzolato as little as I do, but a little bit, there was no way he was going to go for the 205. He wants to win, and so he loaded 210 kilos on the bar to challenge Liu Xiaojun for the gold. He had one attempt remaining, as did Liu. Unbelievably, Nino cleaned the weight. It's just historic weight for someone to clean. And he drove the bar so high on the jerk to put himself atop the history books. He locked it, he gradually lowered his knee down to the ground, and then his arm went, and he dropped the bar in front. It was a no lift for Antonio Pizzolato. That meant that the GOAT Liu Xiaojun had another gold, and it would be Bonat in silver and Antonio Pizzolato in bronze. But with the medal and the record in the tank, Liu came out with a no-pressure 3rd attempt at 210 kilos, a lift I felt like he probably didn't want or feel like he needed to take. He'd already won at this point, but he did come out and give it a go, and you know what? He cleaned the weight. He made it. He made the clean, and then he dumped the bar, didn't bother attempting the jerk, and he celebrated regardless. He lifted his coach up into the air, who's been with him for so long. It was just a glorious, emotional moment. Now, that sight of Liu Xiaojun walking off the platform with his coach might indeed be the last time we ever see Liu on an international stage. His career has framed my involvement in the sport, as I'm sure it has many of yours. His performances have been some of the most inspiring and motivating of any athlete I've ever had the pleasure to watch. And so if this is his last performance, then an Olympic record and a gold medal around his neck was a fitting way for him to say goodbye to us and for us to say goodbye to him. So on behalf of everybody watching, Liu, if you ever see this video, thank you so much for inspiring a generation of weightlifters. It's been a pleasure. So I wanted to take a few moments just to jump on here quickly and talk to you wherever you are consuming this content, whether that's podcast or video. It's been over 4 years now since I've been recording. I've done over 500 podcast episodes, over 100 YouTube videos, interviewing hundreds of coaches and athletes. I've chewed the fat with Josh, with Glenn, with lots of people, all really for one goal. I started it because I was trying my absolute hardest to try and understand how I could become a better weightlifter. I wanted to understand how to better form positive training habits, how and when and what to eat, what I should be spending my time on outside of just the training, and how to maximize recovery, what the tools and tactics were that the best athletes in the sport had implemented into their lives. I wanted to know absolutely everything, and honestly I've done a pretty decent job in curating that knowledge and passing it on to everybody who's listened. I am, however, well aware that as good as this information has been, there is a problem with the way that podcasting as a medium of communication works. Athletes and coaches turn up and we just chat. I ask the right questions sometimes, and I don't necessarily get it always spot on. I don't always nail it. And the athletes and coaches, they turn up and they inspire and they educate me and all of you in an amazing way. But there is no real planning involved in how that works. It's just a free-flowing conversation. And you don't get to ask the questions that you want to ask. Athletes Only, September the 25th, will be a one-day online educational event via Zoom. We have lined up 7 absolutely incredible guests who will bring you actionable advice, tools and tactics, all focusing on helping boost your progress to succeed in your weightlifting career. You'll learn how to develop the habits of a successful athlete, how to fuel yourself efficiently with nutrition, recover better, create a winning mindset, and much, much more. Also, you will have an opportunity to ask your own questions. So for this first Athletes Only on September 25th, I'm going to announce the first 2 guests now. Olympic champion Maud Charon began competing internationally in 2016. 5 years later, and she's climbed the rankings all the way to Olympic gold. Doing this with such speed hasn't been easy for her, and it's required multiple successful measures put in place inside and outside of the gym. And so Maud will be talking with us, with you, about these strategies and plans that she lives by, that you too can adopt to succeed in hopefully as successful a way as she has. Next, we have Dr. Sam Spinelli, who's been somewhat of a go-to for us now at Weightlifting House for everything outside of just the programming of lifting weights. Sam is going to deliver his lecture on recovery through the lens of the 80-20 principle, a principle that's shaped the progress I've made in my life and was the driving force behind much of Glenn Pendlay's programming. So Sam is basically going to help answer one basic question. If I have X amount of time to dedicate towards recovery, what will give me the biggest bang for my buck? And then what? And then what? And so on. Between his Instagram and his YouTube channels, Sam reaches about 500,000 followers with every single post. And as we speak, he is creating his presentation, focusing on leaving you with actionable takeaways for your athletic betterment. We're going to announce the following 5 remaining guests over the coming weeks, but for now, the tickets for September 25th are, as of this minute, live. And the first 100 tickets are going to be with $20 off. We've not done this event before, but based on Coaches Only, I imagine those tickets will go extremely fast. We'll put a link down below for you. Athletes Only is the greatest education for weightlifters. Invest in your future, September 25th with Athletes Only.